Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining the PPS group today. And thank you very, very much for taking the time to be with us as we take you on a journey today regarding the PPS RA. Please, could we put up the slide on the agenda? Thank you. So I would like to invite you all to sit back and go on a journey with us as we take you through some possible questions and answers and some deeper understanding of what the PPS RA offer has for you. And we'd like to invite you to use our Q&A chat room, which is on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll be able to then answer the questions either during or at the end of the seminar today. After our welcome, we're going to do a quick introduction on PPS Wealth Advisory, followed by two keynote speakers. Our first keynote speaker will be James Downey, and James is the chairman of the PPS RA Fund and has been the chairman of the fund for the last 10 years, as well as a board member of the PPS Holdings Trust. Exciting for us is that James is not only our chairman of the board, but he's also an independent retirement fund trustee for over 25 years, so bringing a lot of industry experience to what we do for you, our members in this fund. James has also been a member of PPS for the last 30 years. Our second keynote speaker this morning is our Chief Operating Officer of PPS Investments, James Fraser, who's been in the financial services industry for over a decade and fulfilled several roles during this time. James is well versed on all matters within our business and over the last 5 years has been a key driver in implementing the strategic enhancements that we've seen come through from PPS Investments. Today, however, he will be focusing on the impact of costs on your retirement savings and tools that he has been involved in creating to assist you and ourselves in decision making. But before I hand over to our two keynote speakers, I'd like to take you on a very quick journey of wealth advisory. Next slide, please. So wealth advisory and today's session is a collaboration between PPS Wealth Advisory and PPSI, both elements of the PPS group of which you are a member. PPS Wealth Advisory was born earlier this year and in fact launched in February as a direct result of feedback that we got from members who came forward with their concerns on what keeps them up at night and how they'd like additional, more bespoke planning because they were in a segment that required more complex and more deeper financial planning expertise. As a result of taking that on board and also doing a lot of research externally, we were able to bring to market in February of 2020 an exclusive wealth management boutique offered for qualifying PPS members, offering a range of wealth management services and solutions. Next slide, please. Some of the items that were top of mind for both our wealth members as well as the industry as a whole when we did the research, the items that are keeping you up and require additional planning are global economic changes, the political environment, tax on wealth, personal and family health, succession planning, your business if you're in your own business or practice, along with stock market volatility and obviously your personal security and safety. All of this happened pre-COVID-19, which has obviously brought in a whole lot of additional risks and concerns. And that's why we are delighted today to be sharing this platform with PPSI and our keynote speakers to bring some certainty to your life on what PPS is able to do for you on the retirement annuity. Next slide, please. In front of you now are our esteemed wealth managers, and we're delighted to say that our footprint is in the Western Cape, Johannesburg, and Durban. All of our wealth managers have got many, many years in the industry, serving members, and are well-versed, well-experienced, and well-educated in terms of delivering the technical capability that is needed for you, our members, who are in this complex financial planning environment. Next slide, please. So what is it that we're actually bringing you? The needs and requirements that we find within the wealth management area is of a holistic financial planning need. So not only servicing you, but your family, your practice, and conducting financial planning and providing advice for all the areas in your life, both local and offshore. We deliver premium solution offerings aligned to your ever-changing and evolving needs, and we permanently in development on additional services and solutions that we can bring to meet your needs. We offer a dedicated relationship with the expert, your wealth manager, who has your specific interests at heart. There is no cookie cutter approach to wealth management, but very much a bespoke, personalized relationship and solution designed for you, our member. Next slide, please. So in closing, before I hand over to our keynote speakers, just a focused offering for our distinctive professionals in the high net worth space with a powerful team to support you. What we have available within our PPS group are specialist services and technical experts who equip our wealth managers, whether it's tax advice, estate planning, portfolio creation, asset management, or the risk solutions needed to ensure your legacy and the protection of yourself should something go wrong. And this expert panel of specialists is completely embedded within the wealth business as part of the team. Next slide, please. So in joining PPS Wealth Advisory and as members on this, this program today with us, you are wealth members. We're delivering to you advice that is underpinned by a deeply researched house view, pricing and modeling that has been looked at both locally and internationally to ensure best practice delivery on a standardized basis for your solutions. A high relationship-based advice-led approach, and a serve to sell ethos. So we look to put you in the center, surrounded by the wealth managers, the skills and technicality support around that, and ultimately getting to the solutions that you need to fulfill your financial well-being and life journey. Our experience and service is well over 100 years across the wealth management team in terms of delivering advice and solutions to our members. Our last slide, next slide please. Our last slide is just a quick whiz through of the solutions basket that has been created for you, our discerning wealth member. We've ensured that we're protecting what's important to you, helping you build the reality that you dream of, assisting you to craft the future that you desire, and help you grow what you've already built. And in order to do this, it's a composite creation of both services and solutions. You'll see on the slide in front of you, we've listed both the wealth protection, the wealth creation, and the wealth acceleration solutions that our wealth managers are able to bring to any discussion and conversation that they have with you. In moving now into the purpose of today's session, which is really dealing with our retirement annuity solution, I'd like to just tee it up for James Downey, our first keynote speaker, by talking about the evolution of our world. And our world is in motion very, very quickly. While evolution might be gradual, I think in the last 10 years, we've seen things evolve very, very quickly. And the picture on the screen tells it all, moving away from the clunky dial phone to really having our lives on a cell phone and everything to do with our lives connected through that cell phone. We don't necessarily see that constant change that is taking place until time has passed and we look back and reflect. Something that was so fundamental to our daily lives as the telephone met our needs at that point. But look at today and look at what the cell phone does to meet your needs. It's far bigger than just making a phone call. As our needs evolved, we adapt our lives, and this becomes our new norm. And the cell phone now is a completely new norm. It's an extension of our hand. Hindsight is therefore a powerful learning tool. And being in our retirement annuity, we're able to take you on an evolution journey that PPS has engineered for you as later on today. Next slide, please. I want to just touch on the evolution of PPS. Similar to the way that the PPS group evolved into a financial services group, the PPS Retirement Annuity Fund has also undergone developments over the last 20 years. And to share these developments with you, we're going to be handing over to James Downey. At this point, I'd like to invite James to come into the boardroom.
Thanks, Linda. I think just to introduce the fund itself, the fund has just shy of 100,000 members and about 30 billion rands worth of assets, obviously members' money. There are 6 trustees, of which I am one, that have been on the board for probably, I think the 6 of us, probably 8 or 9 years. We have actuarial expertise, legal expertise, accounting expertise, investment expertise, very diverse in all forms on the board. The fund itself was started 60 years ago by PPS in collaboration with Sanlam, and for many years was simply an extension of the Sanlam retirement annuity. It was only in the early 2000s that PPS itself got its own insurance license and was able to launch its own retirement annuity. So for many, many years, and some of the older members will still obviously have these policies. It was identical to the old. For many years, there was a thing called the One Retirement Annuity, which was launched by Sanlam. It was identical whether you bought it from Sanlam or PPS, and the choices were very, very similar. However, as Linda's analogy pointed out, that old RA was like the old telephone. It was perfect for its time. It worked. In fact, it still works, but there are better options at the moment. So in 2010, 50 years after the launch of the RA Fund, we launched what we call Section B of the fund. I think it's really important to fully understand that this is not a new fund. It's just a different section of the same fund. So we created, or we relabeled the Sanlam section, Section A, because that's where it started. And then Section B was a non-insurance type of retirement annuity, where instead of buying a policy, you simply take out a contract and choose your own unit trusts or investments behind that, and don't have all the cumbersome restrictions of having an insurance policy. And that's Section B. That Section B is run absolutely side by side with Section A. At trustee meetings, we do not distinguish between Section A and Section B. We have 100,000 members spread between the two sections, and we don't distinguish between the two at all. There are 2 administrators, obviously. One of them is Sanlam itself, and the other one is administered through PPS Investments. The appointed administrator is an independent company called Intimbeco, which actually does the day-to-day member administration. And this graphic on the slide on the screen at the moment just shows it's one fund. It's just 2 sections within the fund. And from the day we launched the fund, it was possible to do intra-fund conversions. The challenge, though, was that the policy-driven retirement annuity came with some constraints, and that was these hated early termination penalties, which it's not just Sanlam, all the life offices do this. Because of the historical front-end loaded expenses and commissions, the life offices spread these commissions over the life of the policy. So if you terminate your policy early, then the life office seeks to recoup those expenses that they haven't yet recouped. And that's the same with all the life offices. So it's the same at Old Mutual, it's the same at Momentum, Metropolitan, and at Liberty Life. It's not just Sanlam. And that made the challenge of the intra-fund conversion in the early days quite significant. Because although Section B in many respects is significantly cheaper than Section A, the penalties that would be imposed by Sanlam made it just not economic to do the intra-fund conversion. So the trustees, our only job is to look after the welfare of the members. And in so doing, in 2012, we actually closed Section A for new business. So since 2012, members have only been able to buy the Section B type of the fund. However, the majority of the members are still Section A members. So we still look after them as well as we do the Section B members, and the majority of the money is still, the assets is still with Sanlam. However, as time has passed, these termination penalties for policies have got older, members have got closer to retirement, and it has become obvious to us as we have requested the data from Sanlam, it's become obvious that that tipping point of whether the penalty can be overcome by the better fees in Section B, more and more members are now able to take advantage of that, and the decision has become more obvious. It's not an easy decision at all, and it requires most members to have an advisor to help them with that transition. There are all sorts of factors that need to be taken into account. One obviously needs to request the data from Sanlam, the data from PPS Investments. You need a professional to be able to assess that balancing act and see whether it's a good idea or not. So, as I say, the intra-fund conversion option has been there for 10 years. It just wasn't economic for most members until now. And so, at the beginning of this year, the fund launched this zero fee offer. We had a really good assessment done of the membership, and we could see that for very many members, the intra-fund conversion is now an economic and a very good idea. But of course, as I say, don't try and do that yourself. It really does need a professional advisor. So the offer here is that if you do an intra-fund conversion from Section A to Section B, and you choose your investments out of a long list of PPS branded investments, and James Fraser will have a look at those later, you will then get a 0% admin fee. You'll still pay the investment fee on the portfolio, but you won't pay any admin fees for at least 5 years. And we'll have an example on the next slide when we get there of how that works. The big advantage too is that if you do effect the intra-fund conversion and you choose one of those portfolios, the member then becomes eligible for additional profit share, because you're now investing in a PPS branded investment and not a Sanlam branded investment. So, and James Fraser too will elaborate on that in the way that that contributes to your ability to improve your profit share across your family and various other things. And it gives you that flexibility, especially at times like now, where many members are really battling to pay their premiums. I'm on the board of the insurance company as well. We had a board meeting last night, and there are many members. It was an agenda item to discuss the members who are really battling, professionals whose practices are really battling at the moment through various stages of lockdown. That doesn't matter in Section B. You can simply stop your contributions and pick them up again at another time. You do not have the constraints of the policy type of RA in Section A. If we could have the next slide, please. So just a two type example. If there's a client who's older than 61, let's say a 64-year-old client that does an intra-fund conversion. By the way, a 64-year-old client, it's almost certain that intra-fund conversion is a very good idea indeed. If there are any early termination penalties at all, they will be small. Do the intra-fund conversion, you'll pay 0 admin fee for 5 years. Many professionals these days are not retiring at as early as they thought they might when they were younger. So you will get 0 admin fee for 5 years until age 69, if you obviously choose to retire later than 66. For younger members, and there may be still many younger members for whom the intra-fund conversion is a good idea. For example, a 54-year-old client, that 54-year-old client, for example, might have had the RA since he or she was 24, 25. Just after they qualified, they took out the RA. Again, their early termination penalties may be quite modest. If that client does an intra-fund conversion, they will pay 0 admin fees until retirement age 66, or a period of 12 years for that particular member. The age of 66, I think James Fraser will discuss later. It's the age at which the PPS insurance ceases. If we move on to the next slide, I think that's my last slide, and hand over to James Fraser. James will discuss some of the detail of what I've just introduced. Thanks, James.
Thank you, James. It's very odd to have James and James. We do get confused every now and again about which James is being referred to. Yeah, thanks again for joining us. And I mean, one of the challenges we have with webinars is the lack of interaction. We can't see you in the audience. We can't see the reactions of what's going well or where people are not understanding what's going on. So please do take advantage of that Q&A section in the right-hand side. If there's anything that I say that you want more clarity on, stick it in those questions. We'll either answer them at the end of the session or we'll pick them up while I'm talking if I see them coming up. But yeah, the aim of my part of the presentation is to give a bit more of the detail around the retirement fund, the special offer, and PPS investments itself. Hopefully you already have relationships with various areas of the PPS group, including PPS investments, but I might be able to share some things that you didn't know or would like to know more information about. I think the critical thing here is, again, just to recap some of the stuff that James Downey spoke around. The fund has 2 sections. That's a very important part of this conversation. The old underwritten part and the new generation unit trust part, the section A and the section B. And it's critical because the intra-fund conversion process that James mentioned is a much simpler and faster process than transferring to any other retirement fund, which can take up to 6 months and with much more paperwork. So this is quite a simple, fast conversion, should you choose to make that based on some of the information I'll give later on. Some of the things remain the same, though, between those 2 sections. So the professional independent board of trustees remains the same pension fund regulations apply, and the same tax benefits of retirement annuities apply. And I'm going to cover some of the differences in the next slides and try and answer 2 important questions. The first is, will moving to the new generation section B of the fund actually be of benefit to you? And a second one, how do costs impact your retirement savings? So what are the benefits of section B? And this slide sort of tries to show some of the benefits, and James Downey mentioned a couple of them. But one of the main areas is around the flexibility and transparency of section B. And also it provides access to additional benefits of PPS Investments platform, which I'll cover in a couple of slides later. And importantly, it allows profit share allocations for qualifying PPS members, which currently doesn't happen in section A. So what does flexibility and transparency mean? It's quite a broad topic, but as James mentioned, it means no transaction costs if you want to change your investment option. It means no penalties or charges should you want to change your debit order. You can start and stop your contributions whenever you like without any costs. You can increase and decrease without any costs. And all fees are clearly defined and communicated. And remember, in this case, if you take advantage of the offer, it's quite a simple thing to remember, the administration fees will be zero. You also have the flexibility to choose your retirement age. Once you reach the sort of legal age of 55, where retirement is allowed from the fund, you can retire early, or you can delay your retirement without incurring any penalties. You also have full access to your investments via the PPS Investment Secure online portal, where you can see statements, download tax certificates, and interact with your financial advisor. We do use electronic signatures, so part of the development we've been on over the last 5 years is to ensure that we digitally enable our financial advisors and clients to make it easy to do business with us. So almost every transaction can be done without paper and using electronic signatures. So your advisor can prepare quotations and proposals and transactions for you and then send it to you for electronic signature. And that's especially useful in the current lockdown situation where access to printers and scanners is quite difficult. If we go to the next slide, I want to address one of the important questions that I asked earlier. Will transferring to section B actually be a benefit to you? And unfortunately, the answer is that it depends. And that's why James mentioned earlier that the support of a financial advisor is, we believe, quite important in this process. So getting advice from a PPS accredited financial advisor, you can actually provide holistic advice, taking all your circumstances into account and not only just section A of the fund. Because there's no one size fits all to retirement. Everyone's journey is unique, and you need to be clear what degree of flexibility and choice you require and how it fits into your overall strategic retirement plans. And you'll have been in the fund for different periods of time. The termination fees will be different and your end goals will be different. And an important component, but not the only component of the decision, will be around costs and how they impact your retirement savings. Therefore, we've built an easy to use tool called the Retirement Cost Calculator that illustrates the illustrates the impact of costs on your retirement savings, with a specific focus at the moment on section A and B, but it can also be used for transfers from other retirement funds. So what we're showing you on the slides at the moment is the actual output of the calculator. There are various inputs that are required that your financial advisor can assist you gather together. But it includes the current value of your retirement annuity, your retirement date or maturity date, any existing debit order information, those termination charges that we've spoken about that could be between 0 and X%, and then costs and fees, something that's known as an effective annual cost in the industry, which was something that was created to allow fair comparisons based on costs between different investment options. So it's critical you have all that information to hand when you're using the tool with your advisor and that you understand each of those components. All of the information is factual and allows a fair comparison based on costs. We're trying to make a like-like comparison, and it's not always in all circumstances that it will be the right thing for you to move. So you can see from the graph, there's a blue bar and then there's 4 grey bars that might have a green bit at the top. The blue bar is showing the outcome if you decide to do nothing, if you stay exactly where you are and stay in section A. The 4 bars then show the impact of moving immediately in 1 year, 3 years and 5 years. So that covers various scenarios where the termination fee reduces over time. And it might be that now isn't the right time to move. It's in 1 year, 3 years or 5 years. And the simple thing that you're looking for on this tool is there a green block on top of one of those grey bars? Because that indicates that on a cost basis, that you would be better off by moving to section B of the fund on that cost basis. So if there's a green bar, it's well worth you talking to your financial advisor and understanding what the next steps would be. One of the components that's actually missing from that EAC or that cost comparison is additional benefits that PPS offers. So the profit share isn't included in that calculation. So those would be additional benefits on top of the green bit on the top of the bar. And I'll talk to you about something called the family network later on, which enables you to consolidate you and your family's investments onto the PPS investments platforms and benefit from lower fees overall. And those aren't included in this calculation, but additional benefits on top. If we go to the next slide, another important decision is which investment option to select. Now, the zero fee offer, as James mentioned earlier, is linked to the full range of PPS funds. So you need to transfer all of the assets into a PPS fund when it comes over to the PPS investments platform to qualify for the zero fee offer. But we do have a very comprehensive range of funds covering various risk profiles, local and offshore, passive and active, and multi-manager and single manager funds. So we're confident that we have a solution that is well diversified and can help you reach your unique retirement goals. And obviously that is another important discussion to have with your financial advisor. One thing to make clear around the profit share allocation, normally at PPS investments, there are two levels to the profit share allocation if you're a qualifying member. The first is on the product wrapper, so the retirement annuity, the tax-free investment account, the living annuity. The second is on the PPS investment option, so the unit trust underlying investment option. So you earn at both of those levels. Now, because we're offering a zero fee deal, you would not earn profit share for these Section A assets on that product wrapper level, that first level, but you would earn profit share on the investment option level. And we'll talk more around how you can benefit from additional profit share in a later slide. So we move to the next slide. What now? Now you've made the decision and you've decided to move across. What is the rest of the journey with PPS and PPS investments like? So PPS as a group is well known for its life insurance offerings and solutions, which generally end around retirement, usually with a payment of your profit share account that you've been accumulating over your relationship with PPS as a group. However, the expansion of the PPS group, which Linda spoke to earlier, into short-term insurance, medical aid, financial planning and investments, has extended the relationship with PPS members to a lifetime of mutuality and not just a working time of mutuality. And this is important because PPS members live a lot longer than the general population, which means that PPS members need bespoke solutions specific to them, which is where financial advisory and wealth advisory that Linda spoke to earlier come in. They are the experts in this space for PPS members. PPS members should also ideally see their profit share account as a supplement to their retirement savings to ensure that their retirement is more comfortable going forward. Living longer in retirement means you need more retirement savings, which is a challenge for PPS members due to that longevity issue I mentioned earlier. But once you have decided to retire, PPS investments can provide you with income for retirement with a PPS living annuity, but we also have a hybrid annuity, which combines the best of both the living annuity and the guaranteed annuity. And there's been lots of articles in the press recently around the benefits of such a hybrid offering the best of both worlds. In addition, when your profit share account vests, it is administered by PPS investments. So you will be able to see it alongside your other investments and can simply set up regular withdrawals to supplement your income when required, rather than taking the full lump sum and spending it. Now, I mentioned that the benefit of moving to Section B was also coming over to the PPS investments platform. Now, as clients of advisory services and wealth advisory, I'm hoping you already have some relationship with PPS investments, but just to remind you of some of the benefits of the platform. So we offer a full product range. So I spoke to it earlier, the retirement funds, preservation funds, living annuities, endowments, tax-free investments, investment accounts. So we have the full range there. But we offer it to both members and non-members, and that's important. No other areas of the PPS group offer these solutions, their solutions to non-members. And that's important for two reasons. One is that as a qualifying PPS member earning profit share at PPS investments, you can also link to your family members to earn profit share on their assets at both those levels I spoke to earlier. So again, if you consolidate your family's investments on the PPS Investments platform, you can benefit from profit share on those assets as well, obviously boosting your profit share account. The second area is around something called the family network, which I mentioned earlier, which is basically around a bulk buying concept. So PPSI has a sliding administration fee scale, which reduces with the more assets that you have on the platform. So the more assets you have, the lower the fees that you pay. Now, what this family network does, that we launched late last year, is it consolidates all of your family's assets and applies the total assets to that sliding scale. So if the whole family consolidates their assets on the in PPS Investments platform, they all benefit from that sliding scale and get that reduced fee of the family unit as a whole. So everybody pays less, which is very beneficial. You also have access to top asset managers. So in addition to the PPS Fund Range I mentioned earlier, you can also access a select range of third-party managers, a top range of third-party managers. And also we've got a strong drive for our digital platforms. So we believe it's very easy to do business with us with those digital signatures. We also have an app that you can use on your phone if you prefer that, and obviously engaging via your financial advisor as well. So if you go on to the next slide. If you want more information on the offer, the website to go to is shown at the top there, www.pps.co.za/PPS RA. It talks through where to get all of the information, but with your relationship with Wealth and Financial Advisory, speak to your financial advisor. They can take you through the process without having to do any of the steps on this page. So we do believe in the value of good financial advice. We think it's important to include a financial advisor in these discussions. Your retirement savings is an important part of your holistic financial planning. So please take the time to speak to your wealth or financial advisory advisor for any more information on this offer or any of the benefits that I've mentioned as part of this discussion point today. Sorry, I'll hand back to you now, Linda.
Thank you so much, James and Mr. Downey, as just to differentiate the two Jameses. Appreciated. I know that what we'd now like to do is potentially look at some of the questions that have come up in the Q&A bar. And again, I'd like to invite our members to please post your questions. And whether it's to James or Mr. Downey or to the Wealth Business, we'd like to open the floor for our ability to respond to you. But while questions are being published, I'd just like to, there were a couple of points that James Fraser raised that just from a wealth perspective, I'd just like to reinforce. You know, as we go into retirement and potentially the fourth industrial revolution, which is maybe an overused word at the moment, we're all busy reinventing ourselves. And because work, you know, retirement is no longer a line in the sand with a gold watch, but it's generally a continuity of using our skills and in some cases being able to give back. But the point I want to make is that in retirement planning, mitigating the risks of longevity, consumption risk, market and inflation risk, which are probably the biggest risks we all face post-retirement, are well taken care of within both the portfolio multi-manager asset lineup that PPSI offer our members, and importantly through the hybrid annuity that James alluded to, and then all brought all together by the wealth manager. So on an ongoing basis, we're able to assist you in managing those four risks. With that point made, I'm just going to move to the first question. So I think this question is for James Fraser, and the question is, how would you know if you qualify for additional profit share?
Yeah, so the simple answer would be if you're currently earning profit share on other PPS products, then as taking part in this offer, you will earn profit share on the assets you move across into those PPS funds. So the critical thing is, if you take advantage of the offer and you invest in the underlying PPS unit trusts, you will earn profit share on those unit trusts. You must have a qualifying PPS product already. So the the profit announcement was made in April this year. You should have got a profit statement. If you receive one of those, you'll qualify. Now, if you didn't get one of those, you can obviously talk to your financial advisor around, well, how can you become a member and implement a qualifying product?
Thank you very much, James. I hope that that's answered that question sufficiently. The next question that's come up is there a deadline to the special offer of the 0% admin fee? And this question I'm again going to hand to Mr. Fraser.
Sure, no problem. There is a deadline. We actually initially set the deadline as the 13th of April, but obviously due to the impact of the lockdown and some uncertainty there, we then extended the offer to the end of September. So the offer will run until the last day of September.
Thank you very much, James. So, you know, our teams are all working very closely with members who are in this opportunity set to ensure that we get to do the calculations and take you through all the pros and cons in your personal world of what this offer means to you by that time. The next question is what differentiates PPS Wealth from other PPS or independent brokers? So I'll take that one. So PPS Wealth, as I say, was grown as a result of our members looking for a more bespoke solution with a high touch relationship. What differentiates us is our absolute anchor in what PPS stands for, which is mutuality. So in differentiating at a core level, our mutuality is without doubt the biggest difference that we have in delivering what we do to you as members. Then we move over into why is our advice different? Our advice is different because it's steeped in research, as I did allude to on the one slide that I ran through really quickly. Everything is done on the basis of research, due diligence, and best practice. Our wealth managers adhere at all times to advice frameworks and what is the best advice-led solution in a particular situation. And then our other differentiator is that the relationship vests with the wealth manager. So at the core of everything that we do is the relationship with our member through a wealth manager who then calls on specialist services. Our solutions are differentiated, and I'm biased, obviously, being with PPS and a member. Our risk solutions, I believe, are ahead of many market competitors. And as such, I believe our solutions are well placed to support our members, and that is a differentiator. But coming back to the core, what is the difference between wealth and independence? Our wealth solution, mutuality, relationship, and the solutions that we have created both through PPSI and our risk business in order to support your outcomes. I've just lost the screen in terms of the questions. Okay. I can see it. Thank you, Mr. Downey. So the next question I'm going to give to you, Mr. Downey. Why is the penalty of changing so high?
It's a historical quirk of the way these policies were sold in the past. And as I said earlier, it applies to all the insurance companies, and it applies to more than just retirement annuities as well. It applies to many different policies that the insurance companies sold in the old days. Makes it sound like it was back in the Middle Ages, but it wasn't that long ago. The very nature of those policies was that the commissions and the insurance company costs were all taken off the policy value and paid out to, for example, the broker very early on, excuse me, in the policy's life. That means that the insurance company basically paid those costs and sought to recoup those costs over the life of the policy. So in the first 2 years, the broker received his or her commission, and that was recouped over the life of the policy. If you then want to change your policy halfway through its contractual life, then the insurance company won't have managed to pay itself back those commissions, and therefore they charge those fees. And as I said earlier, it sounds wrong now, but it never was, and it's just the way the product was designed across the industry. In fact, and not uniquely to South Africa either. It was fairly typical in many jurisdictions across the world. It sounds unfair now, but there is a reason for those fees to be charged, and that's why, as I said earlier, as your policy gets closer to retirement, or as you've had it for longer, those penalties reduce quite markedly, because the insurance companies recoup those fees.
Thank you so much, James. That was an excellent response, and I appreciate that. Your front-end loaded policies, it kind of goes back to that slide we talked about on the evolution and the ability to make the changes as new opportunities are created within product solutions that we spoke about earlier. So thank you very much for that. We have come to the end of our webinar session. So what I'd like to do with permission is just ask Mr. Fraser if he has any, James, any closing comments?
Sure, no, just thank you again for taking the time to attend these webinars. We will, any of the outstanding questions, we didn't publish them all because we ran out of time, we will respond to you and come back to you. And I think the last thing on that penalty discussion just now is that a number of them are very close to zero or zero. And the legislation has changed over time to force those penalties to reduce. So on an annual basis, they do slide down by at least 1% a year. So that's why we have those graphs earlier on showing immediate 1 year, 3 years and 5 years. There's always an opportunity to look at the changes over time.
Thank you, James. Mr. James Downey, any last comments?
Thanks, Linda. Yeah, I think the most important comment for me to make really is for any member to pick up the phone, or these days pick up a Zoom or pick up a Microsoft Teams and chat to somebody who knows what's going on. There is no substitute for a proper professional advisor. This is not a DIY conversion. This is something that requires some specialist help. So we, as trustees, we would really encourage you to use a professional advisor, somebody who's steeped in the ins and outs of Section A and Section B and knows exactly whether it's a good idea for you or not to do that switch. And thanks to everybody for listening. Really do appreciate your taking the time to do so. Thanks.
So in closing, thank you, James and James, for both the presentations and the questions that you answered. And to our attendees, thank you again for giving up your time. We look forward to walking this journey with you. Our wealth managers will be in contact with you, and we're always a call away. So we look forward to assisting you on the next progression in your journey. Have a great day further, and goodbye.